Welcome to Align to Your Design. I'm your host, Baeth Davis. Isn't it time to wrap your business around your purpose and bring your greatest work to the world? Each week, join me as we explore various biometric tools such as human design and hand analysis and how to use them to fulfill your destiny and align to your design. We will reveal how to do the work you are designed to do rather than what you think you should do. Hi there. Welcome. You are watching and or listening to the podcast Align to Your Design. And I am your host, Baeth Davis. And I frequently interview people that I have deemed, using my own strategy and authority, as people living their purpose. And what do I mean by living one's purpose? Well, it means you are fulfilled in your work and you're generally fulfilled in your life. Your relationships are stable and healthy. Your health is in a manageable, good place. You like your friends and you've worked out your childhood crap. That's that's the deal, folks. I mean, you got to do the inner work. You got to do the inner work if you want the prize. And you got to do the outer work if you want more prizes. So I interview people that I see as differentiated. They're in their uniqueness. They are living as themselves. Are they perfect at it? Of course not. Do they still make wrong decisions? Of course. But they make a lot less now that they're correct. So that is what the show is about. And I'm going to tell you about our guest today. We're going to dive right in. We are going to talk about some really fun things today. We're going to talk about the nature of using your intuition, which biologically comes from your spleen. That is the home of your intuition. And the point of your intuition is to keep you alive. It is a very nuanced awareness center in the body. It's actually an area of awareness. It is not mental. It is knowing. You can't explain it. That's the thing about intuition. There isn't an explanation. The information comes to you energetically and you simply know. So we're going to talk about the nature of intuition with our wonderful guest today. She is a projector. So we're going to look at the projector dilemma of how to wait for that invitation, especially if that's a new skill for you, and how that impacts positively and negatively your relationship with money. And then, of course, towards the end of the show, we will look at our guest chart. Now, I don't do that every show, but we do at most shows. So welcome if you're new to Align to Your Design. And if you've been with us, thank you for all the downloads. Thank you for the awesome reviews. Please share the show. If you liked it, please leave a positive review and share it with other people. We so appreciate that. And my mission is to get the consciousness of having a life purpose out to as many people on this planet as are interested. That is my mission. And particularly to help the ambitious healing artist types of the world to know that they don't have to be starving artists. They can make money doing what they love. And the point of this show is to inspire you to live as yourself. All right. So with that, let me tell you about our guest today. Her name is Lisa LaJoie. She is an intuitive business strategist for entrepreneurs and business owners, a spiritual mentor to high performance achievers, and she's the owner of Tapping Into It. Now, Tapping Into It uses tapping, and she's a tapping expert. So it's one of the tools in her toolbox. For over 2 decades now, Lisa has been utilizing her gift of heightened intuition and fierce faith in your human potential to help you and businesses build and sustain more success. Lisa is a dynamic force who empowers her clients to help them unlock their innate power by learning to trust and tap into their own intuitive intelligence. Lisa also uses her gift to tune in and help people quickly find answers to life's tough questions, easily navigate life's changing experiences, negotiate like a boss, master partnerships, reach new business potentials, purpose, passion, and profits. She also helps people develop solid business boundaries, very important, and connects individuals to their higher calling. Lisa LaJoie is the creator and host of Unstoppable Consciousness, an up-leveling podcast showcasing evolutionary conscious leaders. So be sure to go listen to her podcast, leave a review, and subscribe if you like it. Lisa's podcast highlights the impact people make in the world with their purpose and how they manifest their magnificence daily. So you can see that Lisa and I are very aligned. So with that, let's bring the amazing, the incomparable, and the dynamic Lisa LaJoie, projector and intuitive business strategist, to align to your design. And let's welcome her to the show. I'm so excited about today. Hey there, Lisa.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. I'm so happy to be here. And I love it.
Oh,
I just love listening to you. So I was big smile on my face that whole time.
oh, I'm so glad. I'm so
Yeah.
glad. I'm so glad. Well, it's
Yeah.
wonderful to have you with us.
Thank you.
And I'm really happy that we get to have this conversation. So, when did you first realize or have that moment where you recognize you had special gifts? Can you tell us about that?
Sure. I mean, it happened right away. I came down the pipeline. My first memory is of knowing this. Like my first memory is of knowing things weren't correct in my environment, knowing things were not okay, with my surroundings. Like I just always knew. I was like, no, something's not right. And knowing this place was really different. Those are my first memories of just feeling like, where am I right now?
Hmm.
And what is this place like? What is this place that I'm in? So, yeah. Mhm.
Wow. And how receptive or not was your family to your abilities?
Oh, well, I can tell you some fun stories about that, but I'll just say it this way. My father was a Lebanese man, traditional man, Orthodox. My mother was a Roman Catholic. And I don't know how they even got together, but that's how it started for me. I always told them later, I'm like, why'd you even do that? I don't even understand. But for me, I was born in the lack of awareness that you were allowed to be yourself. Faith and intuition didn't belong to me. It wasn't something that I could live or communicate inside. So, you know, I had it very difficult to try to figure out how to manage all that. I used to go in church and I would have outbursts in the church because I knew what the priest was saying was not really aligned to what I knew was true. And it was hysterical. Like my whole growing up years, I was just totally confused why people were doing what they do and saying what they say, and in the church, what they were doing in the church. And I have nothing against that. I just had another level of knowingness about being ourselves, and that is really important, and that we all are universal consciousness, and that it wasn't just specific people that had that skill or that ability, so it was interesting. It was interesting. And my mother figured it out sooner or later. She became a metaphysical interest, and she
Ah,
knew something was up with me, and she helped me by getting me to an astrologer who could sit down and explain to me through my chart, like you do, Hindu astrology, Vedic astrology. So she could show me that was something that was just inside me. My mother was like, how do you know these things? Because I would see projections all the time. I would see things all the time and then say them. And she just couldn't figure out where the intel was coming from. So yeah.
wow. And one of the things about being the projector type in human
Mm,
design, which makes up 21% of the human population, the projectors see the
mm,
truth the most clearly because your aura is so focused and absorbing.
yeah,
Do you experience that you have this very focused, absorbing energy that's both projecting out the energy, but also absorbing in data? Do
totally. And oh yeah, oh yeah. I've always been like that too, and just didn't understand what was happening. I didn't understand how that worked really, that I would just look at things and be like, stuff would just come at me related to whatever was happening. If I read articles, if I talk to a person in school, I could feel what the teachers were thinking and feeling at home, my parents, what was going on there, the things that were just not right. I knew all these things and just had no understanding of what that meant. Even today, like I have to be very cautious, because when I feel someone's energy, or I feel something coming at me, I retaliate too energetically. Like if I feel things, I'm kind of digesting what I'm seeing, and then that also sends out signals. And I've noticed that at times people can feel extremely overwhelmed by my presence, without words, without voice, with nothing. Just almost some often this happens, like people get very uncomfortable. It's like they know I'm penetrating something and they don't know what, especially if they haven't hired me to work with me, or like they don't know me well. They're just like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what's happening right now, but I feel really uncomfortable. Yeah.
Well, in your design, which we'll get to, we'll look at it in a little bit. The nature of what you're here to do is to provoke
Mm-hmm.
and to cause people to see where they're out of alignment.
Yeah.
You're like the let's tighten up and tidy the ship person. And when you come into a space, people are automatically penetrated by the aura.
Right.
And the particular design you have as a projector, because each projector has their own design, in your chart, you provoke people, and this naturally creates tension.
Mm-hmm.
And the
That's
tension you
real.
create is to cause the person to look at, in a sense, the tension in their own life that they've been ignoring. Right?
So
Where are
real.
they? Right? Where are they tense? Oh, maybe they're tense about that business negotiation they've got coming up, right?
Yeah.
That business they want to sell, or that business they want to buy. Because, and I'm using those examples because you specialize
Yeah.
in helping people in a sense with mergers and acquisitions and
Yeah.
prepping their business to sell. So you're working with people who are business owners operating a pretty high level, who are looking at how they can leverage the resources they've got
Yeah.
and created, right?
That's
And
right.
you naturally are going to create tension. So for many of those individuals, they're used to living with tension, right?
Yep. Oh yeah.
But if they're not the right person for you to serve, I would imagine they'd be pretty freaked out
Yep.
by what they start feeling being in your presence.
Yep. Yep. That's very real. It's very real and true. And what's interesting, my experience often has been when I'm in that circumstance and that tension is being created by whatever the interaction of energy, people will often try to turn it around because it makes them so uncomfortable, right? It makes them so uncomfortable. And I remember when I was very young, before I realized that the gift of knowing could be useful to others, because it was always so personal, really personal, my whole growing up, because I knew why my parents got separated. I knew my brother was mentally ill. I really knew so many things that I used to protect my father from my mother and my mother from my father because I could see and feel them and what they were experiencing. But when you're young, you can't discern that that's not yours to figure out, right?
Right,
And
right.
so over time, like as a projector, I started thinking I had to fix things and do things that were really not my job ever to do. I didn't understand. I had to really become deconditioned and understand that that was not my job, because I saw it didn't mean I had to fix it. I had to have permission to ask, like the invitation to actually be involved in helping people see truth and make and rearrange truth, in their own life,
Mhm.
and heal themselves, and make sure they weren't making decisions that would break their life apart, but instead open their life up. And that was very, very difficult because I'm like a warrior. So I just always felt like I had to fight for all these things that weren't really mine ever. And I didn't understand the invitation part. And I ended up in a lot of challenging conflicts because of that. Because I have that, we'll talk about, I'm sure in my chart, it's there. I'm an energy projector. I'm very, fired up also, you know what I mean? And then I could see things and I'd be like, whoa. And you can't get involved with people like that. And until I started to understand more and more about how that process worked, and that I worked best and had the best results with people that really wanted my intel, who could take it, because my intel isn't like, I'm going to make you comfortable. It's never been. I've never made people comfortable. And never. I can be loving and kind. That's true. But I'm always like hitting the truth as far hard as I can, because that's to me what pops people open. And that's just the way it comes to me anyways. Like you can't, at one point you can't try to be somebody else. You have to be yourself. And then the people will find you. But that challenge of realizing that's not mine, this is mine, and I have the intel if you want it, but I don't know how to give it to you unless you ask me. You know what I mean? So making a business out of these gifts and these capacities that I had was one of the best things I could do, because it created an opportunity for invitation.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also, just made more sense to me that's the best way to make a partnership, to be able to help people move their things along the way they need to. But
Yeah.
it's great. It's really not easy to be a projector. I've learned that. It's
No,
really not easy at all.
no, it
No,
sure
no.
isn't. It sure isn't. So will you walk us through working with one of your ideal clients and
Sure.
how your transformational coaching works? Essentially, what is the process and what is the general outcome that people are seeking?
So my system goes like this. You know, a person will come to me. It's often word of mouth, or now, online more, because I pivoted over there. And they'll come to me and they'll have a session where I basically gather intel about them. They come, they sit, they give me their birthday. I start accessing, I start seeing all these things in their life. And I used to think, like, now I understand more what's happening. I look at areas in a person's energy system, and
Mm-hmm.
I from that space and that place, I start understanding what's breaking down for them. Usually they'll tell me, these are things I want to work on in my life, or here's where I'm getting obstructed too. Like, people that are in business, they're aware. They're more aware of what's going on, because they have goals in general. They have reasons to do what they're doing. And so I tell them, I'm going to gather information about what's obstructing you. And then you can ask me anything that you want. And I just do that process, because 99% of the time a business person is coming to me because they want more success. That's it, period. It's like, it's a very clear, our interaction is, I want to rise higher, I want to up level, I want to scale myself and my business, and something's obstructing me. That's often what people will come to me for. And then I start unpacking the intel to them, and then we start arranging strategies around how to make those changes. And sometimes it's the person's personal life, and sometimes it's really what's going on in the business. So my ideal client is that high performer who wants to get it done, who's able to take intel and just evaluate, does that sound correct or not? They're actually able to hear me clearly. I don't have to fight with them about listening to the knowledge, because they already have an overview that something is broken. And then once the intel starts rolling, there's this instant trust that happens, because I just shouldn't know what I know about what's going on in the intricate details of their business or themselves or their life. And so there's this instant trust that starts to develop right away. And then what my favorite part about working with business people is, they know I teach them how to work with me, and they just come to me because they already are in charge of what's going on in their business world. So they know how to get the best out of our time together, and to work on the things that are obstructing them building their business. I mean, I've helped people sell their businesses, like you had mentioned, and help them see what was going on with the other people involved that was causing a negative ripple effect in the sale, and help them find strategies to rearrange those things so they can have a successful outcome. I've shown timing. There's all kinds of things that we can find out through intuition and through guidance, and through knowing how to read energies and energy patterns in a person and in their life and their surroundings. Every business has an energy, and I'm able to tap into that energy and see what's going on in it. So those kind of, the circle of events happens that way. And then, from there, usually there's like a beautiful build that happens. I never work well with people who don't want to take accountability and responsibility. It just doesn't happen, because the intel is too hard for them, and then they're pushing against it. And once you start pushing against truth, things that I'm finding that are really true, I know instantly that I'm just not going to be able to help them, because they want to stay small. And that always breaks my heart. Like, it breaks my heart, but it's real. It's real. You got to want your truth, or you're never going to go anywhere. Right. That's it.
right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing to me that we're not really trained to take in the truth
No.
or really have honest feedback, in part because we're lied to from the earliest age.
Yeah.
The programming and the deception starts very young.
Yeah.
And
It's crazy.
then we're told, don't lie.
Yep.
And I always found that fascinating, like you, like at a very young age, 5, 6 years old, I would think to myself, they're telling me not to lie, but they lie.
Yeah. All
From
the time.
Santa Claus to where dad really was to where the money's going. My parents lied, church lied, school lied. So yeah, so actually staying true to oneself through all that deception and not second guessing oneself. To me, that's a great power you possess, is this
Mm-hmm.
certainty in your own
Mm-hmm.
knowing that you've never lost.
No, I'm blessed that I fought for that and never lost it. And it's funny because all like through the programs I teach or the clients that I have, and it's funny to me that people don't we talk spiritually about all these things that masters have mentioned and like the truth will
Mhm.
set you free, but I'm like, you do have to want it before it's going to set you anywhere.
Right.
Like to me it's like I don't understand what is the disconnect once people understand that once they know their truth, no matter what it is, it instantly starts to dissolve. The pain starts to dissolve, and then the whatever pain they're in starts to dissolve from the truth being known. So why we don't run to seek it with all our might is for me the work that I have to do. Like to me, that's
Yeah.
the work for me that I have to do because I just it breaks my heart that people are constantly seeking external, not even validation. They're looking for external reasons to not know their truth. And your truth is who you are. It has everything, everything about you is sitting in it. Even the stuff you don't like, but that can be dissolved instantly because you just see it for what it is. Yeah,
Well,
it's
don't you
crazy.
think though, there's huge
Crazy.
consequences for living your truth though, right?
Oh yeah.
There's the consequence of
Yeah.
you might be rejected,
Yep.
right?
You will get rejected. You not might, you will.
Or you have to change relationships or change jobs. So I think it's more that people are very afraid of the rejection or isolation they perceive will happen. And they've made that more important than living their truth. And for me, I'm like you, like from the youngest age, I'm like, oh, I'm doing this life on my terms.
Yep.
And of course, I mean, I still got conditioned, I still got caught up in things. But I think my last real interest in a guru, I was maybe 27 years old and I met this guy and someone was like, oh, you should meet this guy. And I sat with him and I remember thinking the whole time, like, what a complete racket charlatan this guy is. And he's like,
Yep.
you need to buy this thing and wear this outfit and prey on my image. And I'm like, you're joking, right? I'm like, I have to go, is what I have to do. So what
Yeah,
I
I've
said to him,
never,
and I'm like, I'm out of here.
well,
And
for
that
sure.
was 27
Yeah.
years of age. I'm like, no more gurus.
Yeah.
We're all teachers, and I just need to find mine. I gotta find mine.
Yep.
So this is great. So um what what would you say for your high level business owners? What's the biggest problem they run into in their business that you see that they have the hardest time dealing with? If you had to pick maybe one or two things that business
Yeah.
owners really struggle with actually dealing with effectively, what would you say?
It's their own personal deficits. So when you're very, very successful, you don't realize that sometimes you're a problem,
Yeah, it's so true.
right? And often they don't, because they're thinking at this high level of success, they don't see the little details of their own deficits. Sometimes they don't even see their mindset. They're so, I'm going after that target so much so that they don't realize these little obstructions internally that they can't confess to, or the things that they're living behind the scenes, or that the way they've been doing it has hit a certain level of success, but they're not going to go any higher because they're disrupting their potential, right? It's very hard for a successful business person to see that it could be them, really. And it's an easy fix because they're so driven that being driven has brought them to this great level, and they don't know how to stop being that way. And they don't realize that the driving force is limiting them at the same time. So I have to reveal that. And it's interesting, like often what will happen to me is I reveal the problem in the business, and then they're like, how do we fix that? And I always, a very successful person will ask me that question, how do I fix that? Well, we have to fix you because you're the problem. What? Right? This is the reaction. And then I explain it like, because normally they're just doing patterns that have always worked, and they don't know how to turn their head another direction, and they get stuck there. They really get stuck there. At that level of success, it's simple things, but things that will really, really destroy the business potential and keep them at this ceiling for a very long time. And it's hard. It's very hard for them if they've already had success. So when they're with me, it's because they want to. They're just really interested in how can I correct my energy, the way I'm managing, the way I'm doing things, the way I'm thinking. How do I get back to vision? Like they also get stuck in, oh, I don't have another vision. Why not? They get obstructed in the doing of what's next and what's next and what's next. Then they forget like what they gave birth to. There's another thing wanting to give birth. Like you just need to stop your doing and focus on the one thing and allow the other thing to come forward. And sometimes they just don't know how to do that. Often they are not happy in their lives outside of business. They're using business as a ways to camouflage their life. And so oftentimes to have real success, they have to leave the things that they know, fire the people they don't want to, look at their relationships and realize they're hungry, starving, they're not nurtured. That often happens too. They're very hungry. They're not getting what they need because they're superhuman to people. You know what I mean? People are not knowing how to serve them, and they like it that way or are used to it that way. But those are the real common problems that I come up against. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what, before we go to your chart, what do you have cooking right now? And if people wanted to find out more about what you do and working with you, share with us.
I have two really wonderful experiences where I have a coaching program called High Performance Ascension. It's really to help high performers learn about their own ascension and their, building mindset and energy understanding and intuition understanding to help people, just especially the high performer, just hook back up inside and get all fully hooked up. And how do you do that? And what's the process of doing that? And then I have a spiritual mastery experience for people that just want to really learn about how to work with all their energy systems. Those are my two programs that I have that are getting ready to go out that are available now. And the spiritual mastery is awesome because I really help people learn about how to use their chakra system, their intuition at another level and another scale. You know what I mean? Because often people understand their energy system, but they do not know how to communicate with it and realize that we're made of this energy system that has all kinds of intel. Again, my Sim Experience program is like only for people who want the truth of the truth. Because all the answers are right there if you know how to navigate them and ask the questions and stuff like that. So those are the things going on. Yeah.
Wonderful. And for everyone listening or watching, the links to reach out to Lisa are in our show notes. So be sure to listen to her podcast and get on board with what you're up to. This is so exciting.
Thank you. Thanks.
So shall we look at your chart?
Yes.
And before we bring it up, I want to talk with you about the projector's dilemma. Once they realize they have to wait for the invitation, and how this impacts the relationship with money. So I would love to hear your thoughts about that because you are a projector, and then we'll look at your chart.
Yeah, for me, it was a very, very interesting struggle, a very painful one, to be honest, because, how do you wait? How do you figure out how to wait for an invitation and provoke one too? Because I mean, for me to wait was very difficult, and to understand how to do that, very, very difficult to do. Until I started realizing that the things that are for you invite themselves into your life.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. And then, when you start working on your internal energy and you start just working on your intention and you let it go, like, here, this is what I think is next for me. Or I started listening to the things that were coming at me and saying, how does that feel? How does that feel? They just start to unpack and unravel themselves. So for me, that was the dilemma that got resolved, is when I sat and realized manifestation is going on, Lisa. You just have to listen. As a projector, I think listening to that energy that we're getting is an invitation. You know what I mean? And I can feel the difference between a real one and not a real one. And I didn't understand that. It doesn't have to be verbal. It can be energetic. It can be from the universe. It can be, I made so many programs from clients asking me for stuff.
That's it. Yeah.
I said, okay, let's go. So that helped me a lot to understand how to work with this idea. and it's actually like an elegant dance, you know what I mean? It's not as painful. And going after things when it's not aligned with you is very painful because it's hard to fight for invitation. Like you really have to, if you guys just think about that, I'm going to fight to get invited to a party where they don't want me to be invited. How much humiliation and embarrassment that is, and degradation. And I mean, and when think of it this way, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do that. So that helped me, you know. I was just like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
I
Yeah.
remember years ago, I was young and I'd met this guy at a film festival and I had a little crush on him. And I was like, we should go to dinner. And he was like, "Mm." And I'm like, oh, I'll join you for dinner. And he didn't say no. He's just like, okay. So I go to dinner and I realize he and his buddies, because there were other people, women at the dinner. I'm like, oh, these guys already have their sights set on these women. And then they were like, oh, we're all going back to our place. I went back to their place and I used the bathroom. I'm like, I'm going to go. I'm so sorry. And I even said to the guy, I'm like, I just invited myself to this thing and you tried to gently shove me off because you already like someone else. And oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Right.
Like I just said it. I'm like,
Exactly.
so embarrassing. Like, oh.
Exactly.
And I still remember it, like thinking to myself, like, it just feels so much better when I'm asked. It just feels so much better because, with women's empowerment, we're really encouraged incorrectly sometimes, Oh, let's see. I'm going to bring you back in a moment here. We bring back our guest. We had a little tech issue there. The video froze, so bring Lisa right back. There we go. Yeah, you froze for a second there.
Sorry about that.
It just feels so much better to be wanted.
That's
And
right.
generators are 70% of the population, projectors are 21%, and reflectors are 1%. So basically 92% of us are not designed to pursue or initiate. We are designed to ask each other questions.
That's right. Yeah.
Hey, would you like to come to the party? And then so I'm always tuning into, and this is what I always ask my clients, were you asked? Who asked you? Oh, no one asked me. Right. And there is the problem. There's the problem. All right, let's look at your chart. Let's look at your chart and talk about this a little bit more. I'm going to bring this up on the screen. Okay. All right. So we'll just bring up the body graph. Do you see it on the screen?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay. All right. So the thing we've been talking about in terms of how you operate, which comes from the personality sun and earth and the design sun and earth, which makes up about 70% of what we are. And there's two key pieces of data. There's a lot of data in there, but there's two key pieces. One is your profile, and you're the 1-3, which is the expert. So the 1 after the decimal here in your sun and earth personality is your conscious self, who's the investigator, who investigates and practices, right? You've been investigating intuition for business owners. And then the 3 is called the martyr. The interesting thing, the martyr, you get called the martyr because a lot of your life, especially up until age 30, is bumping into things, is what doesn't work, is trial and error. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You go up the stairs, fall down the stairs, go up the stairs a little higher, fall down the stairs. It's akin to trying to climb a big mountain where you climb up to a level 1 base camp and then you get to climb back down to acclimate. You climb up and climb down and climb up and climb down. That's what the 3 energy is. Once you hit age 50, that information that you have, the 3 becomes strategy and a sense of humor. Really, you're the how-to person, and you take together data from the 1 and the humor that comes from been there, done that with the 3. And there's a wisdom, and that's why the 1-3 is the expert, because you're so focused on unraveling your own process and the way in which you work so that you can share it with others. No, it's very detailed. And then the gates themselves, 48, 21, 38, 39, all of this energy here is very intense. So 21, don't mess with the warrior, the huntress. It's the huntress. Your brand is the huntress in line 1, the foundation of do not mess with Lisa LaJoie. And you teach other people how to be not messed with.
That's true.
right? Boundaries. And then 48 is the depth of your talent. So there's incredible talent and wisdom. There's deep, whenever gate 48 shows up, the person's deep. They're deep, not superficial, like, you don't have time for
True.
that. And then 38 is the fuel to fight for what matters. And you have the whole channel, the 28-38, which is the fight for purpose, right? And then 39 provokes down here. And it provokes people's spirit. You have the whole channel. I find this very interesting. You have 3 channels down that connect the root to the solar plexus. You got 2, and then a channel that connects you to the spleen. So this is the chart. Yes, you have 2 motors, the solar plexus and the root. The other 2 motors, which you don't have, would be the sacral and the heart. So there are essentially 4 motors in the chart. So you are, as you said, an energy projector. And this is the chart of someone who creates money. You create money through your creativity, the 1-8 channel. Because the 1-8 channel is about contribution. And the 1 in you knows what creative projects are viable, and the 8 in you knows how to lead people to fulfill them. So one thing I would encourage you in as you keep moving forward in your career is you need to be leading creative teams.
Love it.
Creative teams. There may even be, I would encourage you, look into having a TV show in Canada, like on the major network. Like they're ready for this now. But there's an element of production here, having a publishing company, having a TV production company. I don't know if you've thought about doing that, but I invite you to consider it because you would be amazing at it. And then 61. So some of the things you've mentioned on our interview, I want to point out where they're coming from. You have gate 61, which is the inner mystery. And a lot of what you've been talking about is truth. And 61 is the mental component of true, not true. That's true, not true. And we're living in a time where 61 has been hanging out in Pluto, which is the deepest truth. So all of humanity, what's been happening? Truth coming out, truth coming out, truth coming out. Now, for you and I, we're not surprised. We're like, duh.
No,
like this is news. This is news to people. This is how the system works. You know, as my boyfriend said to me the other day, he's like, the system works perfectly. The system is set up the way it's supposed to be set up by the people who set it up. Make no mistake, the system isn't broken. System isn't broken for the people who designed it. The system doesn't work, unfortunately, for most of the people. But for the people who designed it, it works just great. So,
That's right.
right?
He's
So
very smart.
yeah, very smart. It's like, oh yeah, that's true. So 61 for you is operating in your design Mars, which is everyone's location of their desk work or their day-to-day work, their day-to-day vocation. And your vocation is partnering people. It's aligned too, partnering with people to find their inner mystery. That's literally what you do for a living.
True.
And the way you do it, the structure of it is to partner, also aligned to, this gives you a lot of like ease in what you do, is just to understand that the best setups for you are one-to-one, and particularly with the decision maker. The decision maker. And you're here to show them, in a sense, how to hunt correctly, right? How to get those results correctly. So I think that's just great. Yeah. So money for you comes relatively easily if you're helping other people be prosperous from a place of truth, which is basically what you've said. If they're trying to be prosperous from a place of inauthenticity, it's going to be bad news. So one last thought before we wrap up. This gate 55 is pretty significant because in 2027, the wheel of the solar system clicks into a new 411-year cycle. And the cycle that we're in is very tribal. And the tribal structure is about everything for the people. Support. Tribal frequency is about support. Public schools, libraries, firefighters, police, underground sewers, the internet. all of these systems. Well, all those systems are collapsing
Mhm.
because the frequency is fading that supports them. And the new
Yeah.
energy coming in is about individuation. And one of the gates that becomes prominent as of 2027 is gate 55.
Ooh.
And we actually in 2027, we move into gate 55, line 6. All of humanity does, which is the line of greed and selfishness.
Oh.
The good news is it isn't directly beneficial to others, but if people see it in their heart to be generous, it can be very, very beneficial. The shadow is people don't share. So I'm really concerned about the shadow because you'll always be better off sharing.
Mm-hmm.
But because you carry this in your design, you've been living with this from the womb, this frequency of 55. And your 55 is in Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in your Saturn personality. So Saturn is about enforcing the law. And because it's on the personality side, it's about helping others enforce their spiritual laws. Because life only punishes us if we're incorrect with our own internal law. This is what people don't understand. They're like, why am I not being rewarded? Because you're going against yourself. You're trying to follow this other person and do what they're doing. It's not going to work for you. But we're conditioned to follow the leader. So 55-1 is where you're at. And I want to read you just give you the keynote on this. So each of the gates has lines associated with them. And you have 55 in your chart. And gate 55 is the abundance of spirit. So line 1 is cooperation. So how you enforce the law is through cooperation.
Wow.
The expansion of activity through cooperation with powerful forces, through principled actions that guarantee continued support and engendered prosperity. The potential to find the spirit through cooperation with powerful forces.
Wow.
So the thing for you that I would really encourage you around is the more high powered the leaders you work with, the better. How could you start advising the people in government? Figure out who the biggest businesses are where you're at. And I would invite you to intentionally line up with those organizations, because the more powerful, the more effective you are.
I love it.
The more
Great
powerful, the more
advice.
effective you are. Yeah, well, it's in your
Okay.
design. You're welcome, but it's in your design. So anything you want to comment on before we wrap up our show today?
Yeah, first of all, that was amazing. Thank you so much for
welcome.
that. It's such an honor. And human design is pretty mind-blowing, I have to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just been an honor to be here and to have this time with you and to always, work with you. And I'm up to the stuff that you're up to always. And thank you so much for all that you do for us as human beings, because we need it. We really, really need it. So,
Thanks, Lisa. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Well, we'd love to have you back on the show.
anytime.
Wonderful. And thank you, everyone.
Anytime.
This has been another episode of Aligned to Your Design, and we'll see you all soon. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Aligned to Your Design. If you did, please grab my free report, Business by Design, at yourpurpose.com, and then join our Facebook group, Align to Your Design. See you next time.